Hey guys, it's Cody Jones with Jangus Genetics LLC, and I just wanted to bring you out to this rental farm here real quick and talk to you about some of the things that I've been thinking about lately, and those are grazing through the winter and some of the challenges that you're going to see and some of the really cool things that we see. So this is a leased farm that I picked up a few years ago, and the first year, the background on it, it'd been grazed in the ground every year by horses. They had full access to the whole thing. It's not a real big farm, but and the soils here, they've been depleted over the years. So what we did when we took it over is we got the fencing set up, and then the first growing season, we just left it alone. So it grew up. It didn't grow up a whole lot. Like I said, it's not real fertile, but it did grow up. And then that fall, we came in with cows, and we just mashed it all down. They ate what was good. They left the rest, and then we took the cows off. And then I screwed up, and I came back in the next spring. We ended up having a drought, and I'd contracted custom grazing a few heifers, and I was expecting them to be here for 60 days, and they weren't here for 20 days. And I started feeding hay for another 10, and I just, it was a learning experience for me, and I was shocked that it didn't do better than it did. But also we had the drought, and I was just overstocked for what this farm could handle, and had to be able to get to another farm, and so we overgrazed it a little bit, and then it was mowed off. It's got a lot of brush on it. It needed to be cleaned up. And the landlord was nice. He came in here and he brush hogged it while we had the kettle on it. It'll probably need that again some point this year, just to help clean up the thorn bushes and other things if we're not going to take the time to spray them. So anyway, so it grew back in the fall, and I came over here in November expecting to turn out on it, kind of recoup some of I hadn't been on it all summer. Had rested for 4 or 5 months, and I came back in. I'm like, I'm going to be able to. I had 55 cows, and calf. Well, they were cow calf pairs at that point, and my goal is to be here for a month. So I've kind of got it figured up that a cow is going to pretty much eat her body weight in a month. A cow's going to eat her body weight with dry matter on grass in about a month. And so, that's kind of my goal. If I'm going to be on a place, I want to be there for at least a month. That way the trucking it's pretty expensive, and it's, you got to find a crew to help you load them, and you got to have better facilities. And so anywhere I want to go there for at least a month. And so I decided those 55 cows, I took them to another farm I was going to winter at. I had my hay there anyway, and I'm going to bring some heifers back in the spring. And it's just really awesome to have a little, and it didn't. The main reason I didn't bring them over here is because it didn't produce very well. It got dry. We smashed the spring flush and overgrazed it a little bit, and then we pulled them off, and then we just really didn't have a whole lot of regrowth. And I'd say we probably got a bale an acre in the spring, and we probably got a bale an acre right now. And so my hope is that we're going to bring some cows in, or some of these heifers in, and we'll kind of strip graze this. And it's about, I don't know, 8 inches tall. And it's got a lot of green in it. We've left it alone. It's stockpiled. And so when we bring those heifers in, my hope this time is that it'll help slow the consumption rate, because we have a lot of brown in it too. You can see it probably looks brown on camera, but there is some green underneath it. And so when it does start to grow and green up again real fast in the spring, we'll have some brown to help balance that diet, help keep all the nutrients from passing right out the back of the cow. When a cow is loose and the manure is real watery in the spring, that's kind of what you're seeing. You're seeing all those nutrients pass through the cows too quickly. And so growing up, what we would do is my dad would always keep his best alfalfa hay until the spring. And he would try to get the cows to balance their own diet by feeding alfalfa hay in the spring. It never worked. He just turned them out on the whole pasture, and they would eat a little bit, but they would still be super loose. And so my hope is that by having a little bit of brown, and it doesn't take a lot, I'm doing this on all my pastures, not just this one, but just a little bit of brown will help them balance that diet naturally. When if you just have them out on an open pasture, they're going to go through and they're going to eat the tips off of all your grass. They're going to stunt your grass, and they're going to not be able to utilize all that really nutritious material that's going through them. So having a little bit of brown left is super handy, super helpful. Recommend you try to do that wherever you're at. So that's the plan for this farm. And very excited to have a little bit of grass here left. I think that we'll be able to go at least a full 30 days with 25 heifers on here, 30 heifers, something like that. before we move them on. And so I'm really excited about that. And having grass this time of year is better than having cash in the bank, in my opinion. It's just, if you had to go buy hay now, it would be very expensive. It'd be hard to find, not just because of a drought that's any year, but price goes up until we get to green grass, and then price drops on your hay. So, that's just how the system works, supply and demand. That's the way it probably ought to be. So having a little bit of grass here, just money in the bank, and then we'll be able to utilize it in the spring, and it's just absolutely wonderful. A couple other thoughts on winter grazing I wanted to touch on. And I was recently had a conversation with a great guy, and he's raising some cows, and he's working full-time off the farm, about an hour away from home, I think now. And so, he's got a lot of challenges with that. And I think, and a lot of people have that, you got to make ends meet, and with a better management, better profitability, we have more flexibility there with our time and what we want to do. So he asked me, he said, I'm fully stocked, and I can't grow. I don't have the time to rotationally graze. He said, there's no way that I can graze 12 months a year. He said, grazing until November is about the best I can do. And so here's my recommendation for someone who is trying to get into this, and someone who has a full-time job, they don't have a lot of time. You have to figure out what works for you. If you're not happy, then you're not going to keep doing it. And so you've got to figure out what works for you. Okay. If it was me, and this is kind of what I'll take it as, the first thing that you can do is don't overstock your livestock. And what I mean by that is don't fully stock your land. And so that way you can't have grass left over if you have planned out to feed grass for 8 months of the year. So some of the ways that you can do this, and I also, here's another thing I've kind of learned. Cows are the hardest thing to make money with on the farm. They're really, Alan Nation says they're designed to go out and manage low quality pastures, things that you can't feed to growing stock, to your higher value feeder stock, replacement heifers, anything that's growing or grass finishing, your lambs. All those things need to take precedence. They need to have the best stock, the best grass possible. And so cows are really more of a management tool. And if you take and that's hard for me to say, because I always thought that, when I think of farming, I think of two things. I think of cow farming, and I think of crop farming. And so with cow farming, you got to have cows. And this is Missouri. This is what we do. But they are the lowest margin side of the business. And so if you're just starting a farm, maybe think about just finishing a few stockers. Find something that maybe you don't want. Maybe you just set stock your land and you just graze while it's growing. So if you can just graze during the growing season, you don't have to worry about this. And if you have your heart set on cows, that's going to be hard. Or if you have your heart set on a ewe lamb project, that's going to be hard. The other thing that you might think about is custom grazing. And so if you have very limited time, maybe you could buy some time from somebody like me that, I'm out here, I'm doing this, I can swing by, put an eyeball on them during the week. If you take one day a week, like a Saturday, I try not to work on Sundays. It's Lord's Day. It's my family day. And so I'm not advocating this, but I understand a lot of people do. But take one day a week and set up 7-day moves, and then just have some high school kid drive out there, pay them $30 or, pay for their fuel and whatever. And then just have them roll up a temporary poly wire. And that takes them 15 minutes. They put an eyeball on the cows. They call you so you can manage something if there's an issue. And you've got eyeballs on them all the time. You make that money back by your animal performance, especially if you're not running cows. You're running a animal that needs to be gaining weight. And again, you kind of have to have some management experience to be able to set that up. But in a case where you've got cattle not necessarily right next to you and you don't have the ability to go out and see them every day, that's a good option. An older person, retired, find somebody like that. They're probably more dependable than a kid. They're going to go out, they're going to drink their coffee, let the cows through, roll on. They're going to, and there's people that just really enjoy cattle. They don't want to own them. They don't want the problems with them, but they'll go out there and take 5 minutes to do a light labor job where all they got to do is walk, 200 feet, roll up a little reel. look at some cows and drink their coffee. There's a lot of value in that. Somebody might really enjoy that. So partner with somebody like that, you may not even have to pay them, or you may give them a little beef at the end of the year. So we got to be creative here. But so those are kind of some things that I would do. I would look really hard, especially if I didn't have a lot of time, at growing a class of livestock that was going to add value or custom graze for somebody. If I could get eyeballs on them every day, I always put precedence. If I'm going to take somebody's cattle on my property under my management, those cattle get precedence. And that's hard because I care about my cattle a lot, but I'm going to go check their cattle first. I'm going to make sure that those cattle are gaining, they're doing good, they don't have any problems. That's a responsibility that you accept. And so, plan for that. But, those are things that you can get rid of those animals before the end of the growing season, and you don't have to feed hay. You don't have to worry about stockpiling. You could still make money, be profitable, enjoy livestock, and then you don't have to be out there checking waters, putting out hay, and doing all those other things in the wintertime. You don't have to be as good a manager because you don't have to manage to have 12 months worth of grass. You just run them 280 days and then they're gone. No worries. There's a lot of value in that. And you have to, custom grazing takes a lot of the risk out of that. And so, those are definitely things if you're willing to put in the work and get the skills to do it, train under somebody else, or, make sure you got somebody that can kind of coach you. Again, if you're going to take on somebody else's stock or your own stock, you want to make sure you can manage them well, so you don't lose money for you or the other guy. So, that I would really, really look hard at that. Then you just don't even have to worry about all this stuff. You can hang out in the wintertime, take your vacations with your family, whatever you want to do, and you don't have those headaches. If you decide you want to do it all year, you need to be a better manager. If you're going to run cow-calf, you have to be an even better manager if you want to make a profit. So again, one of the best things you could do is to retain ownership of those calves for a little while and grow them a little bit bigger. Work with nature. Hit the spring flush with those calves, and then again, get rid of them so that you don't have to have as much grass in the wintertime. And then you have to kind of understand your land. You have to understand, do I need to fertilize? What are my goals? One of my goals is 100 cow days an acre. I've got a farm I do a little better on that. Most of these farms, like this older rental farm, they need to be conditioned. They need a lot of work before I can get them there. Again, we're going to mow them. We're going to take off probably 20 cow days an acre, or $20 an acre there for, just the management. Sometimes you got to do those things to get them in shape, maintain your lease and those other things. But we got to make money at this. So you have to become a better manager. You have to understand the different classes of livestock, when you need to add weight, when you can sacrifice a little weight to go through the hard times of winter or droughts or different things like that. And you have to understand how many cow days an acre you're going to produce. The only way to do that, in my experience, is to just write it down. You got to do it once. So make sure you don't overstock your first year. Talk to some neighbors, talk to your local FSA agents, figure out, what can I expect, and then have enough hay to buy as much hay as your neighbors are going to buy, because they're probably feeding 6 months out of the year, 4 to 6 months out of the year, and you need to have that on hand because you're going to mess up. And those cows, you don't want to be buying hay this time of year. Those cows are going to suffer. Your bank account's going to suffer, and it's going to take the fun out of it. So you got to be a better manager if you want to do this year round. You got to have a plan. If you're working full time, what are you going to do about water tanks? You're going to get out here, check water tanks at 3 a.m. Can your wife do it? Can your kids do it? What's that look like? What if there's a problem? Who are you going to call? Have a plan for all that. And all these things are simple to do. They're just, you have to do them, and you have to know that you have to do them. That's the hardest thing. And you're here checking out my YouTube videos, so you're trying to learn. And if you have questions for me, there's a lot of things I haven't thought about in this video that will add value. Go ahead and ask them. Send me a comment. Leave me a comment. Shoot me a text. Send me an email. I won't check the email, so don't do that. I had one guy call me. He's like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. What do you think?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm not a professional for very long, but this is my experience, and that's all I can share. Maybe I could point you to some resources. I've got tons of books on my shelves. I've read as many as I can at this point. And, so I can make recommendations from there. I can recommend you to the resources like the Stockman Grass Farmer and other professionals that are doing this, that have been doing it longer. And the more I learn and the more I can share with you over time, I enjoy doing that. So we're all learning together. But I truly believe, and one of the reasons I started this channel was that to add value, the more people we have doing this, the more opportunities there are going to be. You know, the more people we have selling cattle, the more people are going to be buying cattle. The more people are, it's going to be easier to take care of the land. You know, and it's just, we're going to be able to feed people more wholesome products, and we're going to be able to regenerate our landscapes. And I just really think that's cool. And that's one of the big reasons I wanted to start this YouTube channel, to share my knowledge with you guys, to get you excited about agriculture. You know, I'm hoping that you guys get inspired by this. It gives you some encouragement to get out, try these things, you know, get some livestock, get on the land, try to rebuild it, build it up to something better. I think probably 3 to 5 years on here, this land will be turned around. It's going to be doing some really awesome stuff without a lot of inputs, just cows unrolling hay and better management. And I'm really excited about that. I'm passionate about it. You know, that's adding value for the landlord by adding productivity. We're improving the landscape, and it's going to get beautiful here. It is beautiful here, but it's going to get even better. So I hope you guys are excited about this. Like, subscribe, follow for more, leave a comment if you have questions, if I can help you out. Thanks.